Welcome to the First On Scene podcast from the Law Enforcement Death Response Team. Join us as we explore the experiences of first responders and their families. We will discuss some of the obstacles they face throughout their career and beyond, along with ways to stay healthy during and well after retirement. This podcast will provide resources for first responders and will share real-life stories to inspire and show the heroic strength we all have and can build on.
This podcast is from the Law Enforcement Death Response Team, and it is brought to you by golawenforcement.com. If your agency is looking to recruit highly qualified candidates, or you are looking for a job in law enforcement, golawenforcement.com has one of the largest and most popular listings of law enforcement job openings, all the way from entry level to command staff. My name is Patrick Mitchell, and I'm the Chief of Police in the city of West Dallas, which is a inner ring suburb of the city of Milwaukee, a very urban city. In this podcast, we'll have a conversation with Ryan Shogren. Law enforcement officers face a variety of obstacles during their career. Mr. Shogren has certainly experienced those obstacles. Ryan is one of the strongest individuals I have ever met in my life. And in spite of the obstacles that have been thrown his way, he continues to be one of the most positive people that I've ever met. However, that's just the beginning of the story.
My name is Ryan Shogren. I'm the executive director for the North Central HIDA, and HIDA stands for the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas. It's a federally funded program under the Office of National Drug Control Policy. What we do is bring federal, state, and local resources together to combat drug trafficking organizations and keep dangerous drugs out of our communities. My law enforcement career started as a probation and parole agent in a high-risk sex offender unit that specifically focused on two-strike sex offenders here in the state of Wisconsin. And then I transitioned into the absconder unit where we tracked felons as well as those not complying with their probation and would essentially track them down and take them into custody. Roughly 1999, I started with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department as a sworn deputy for approximately 2 years. And then in 2001, I was hired with the City of Brookfield Police Department. I had a number of different roles and responsibilities in the City of Brookfield Police Department, including field training officer, SWAT officer, sniper team leader. And then in 2010, I was hired with the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I started off as a special agent focusing on narcotics and drug trafficking organizations. Then eventually I was promoted to director. And then I was lucky enough, I spent 8-9 months as acting administrator for the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Eventually, when the North Central HIDA executive director position opened up, I was applied for and lucky enough to get this role. The Wisconsin Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation, or DCI, they investigate crimes of statewide importance or significance, and really where they bring a lot of resources to the table, everything from investigative resources to equipment to personnel type resources, and really bolster and enhance any type of investigation. They're really able to take on more complex investigations where law enforcement agencies, state and local agencies might not have that expertise. The Division of Criminal Investigation can take those complex investigations, commit the resources to them, and really follow them to the conclusion. They investigate drug trafficking organizations. They just don't want to take one person off the street. They really want to dismantle that drug trafficking organization because it's going to have the most impact. They take significant kidnappings. Jamie Kloss is a perfect example where DCI worked in collaboration with Barron County and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They take active shooter investigations, officer-involved shooting when requested by outside agencies. They take fraud-type investigations. And really, we try to work with that state and local partner and federal partners that are requesting the Division of Criminal Investigations help and try and bring resources to it, whether we're assisting or actually leading the investigation. Growing up, I moved quite a few times, and especially around Texas. And I really enjoyed moving, getting to know new people. However, I didn't do well in high school because much of the time I was focused on building friendships, getting to know people. And because of that, my grades oftentimes really suffered. There was a turning point when I moved from Texas to Wisconsin. My dad took a job back in Wisconsin. I was actually born in Wisconsin. And when I moved back to Wisconsin in high school, every high school senior, you go to meet with your high school counselor to talk about your future, whether you're going to go to college or military or do something else. And my high school counselor told me to not even bother applying to college, that I would likely be nothing more than a gas station attendant. And a lot of people raise their eyebrows at that. And for me, it was a real turning point. And it was exactly what I needed to get my life back on track, especially when it came to school. And I really started working hard. I started off at a 2-year college and eventually transitioned to a 4-year university. I ended up graduating with over a 3.0 and have now become a lifelong learner, something I really enjoy. I enjoy reading. I'm constantly trying to grow not only in my knowledge, but learn new and different things. And I wish I would have done that much earlier in life, but that high school counselor that told me that I couldn't, I just used it as an opportunity to not only prove them wrong, but it's because of that high school counselor I am where I am today. Ever since I can remember, I wanted to serve my country in some capacity. I really think that's why the Marine Corps was such a good fit for me, and being able to serve in law enforcement in some capacity allowed me not only to continue to serve my country, but serve my community. That's really what I wanted to do ever since I can remember. Both my grandparents served in the military. My dad served in the Air Force. So I grew up in that environment. I really wanted to serve, and not only serve others, but be able to protect others that couldn't always or necessarily protect themselves. And that was extremely important to me. The Marine Corps and law enforcement was a natural fit because it put me in a position to serve. And I really saw that not only as a privilege, but an honor to be able to serve my country in that capacity. I ended up joining the Marine Corps in 1996. I went through boot camp in San Diego and through infantry school at Camp Pendleton. And I served in Milwaukee, part of Fox Company. In early 2004, we were activated for Operation Iraqi Freedom and deployed to Iraq in an area known as the Triangle of Death. It was in the North Babel province of Iraq. On October 8th of 2004, we came back from a foot patrol, and we were advised that we were going to possibly come under attack by a vehicle-borne IED. I had met with my squad and gave them their sectors of fire. I was standing on the roof next to Staff Sergeant Conley. I was briefing him up, and while we were in conversation, I saw this mortar round land. Everything became extremely slow motion for me, and mortar round landed approximately 5 feet from Staff Sergeant Conley and myself, and I was a sergeant at the time. I saw it land. We never heard it coming in because it was dropping right on us. I saw it land. I saw it slowly expand. And I saw this black cloud coming towards me. At that point, I really thought I was going to die. And I get it, those things happen in a flash of a second, but for me, it felt like eternity. And that's something I really still battle with to this day, that my mindset that I was going to die, and my mindset wasn't that I was going to fight, because I went over there truly believing that we were going to possibly have casualties, but we were a well-trained unit. But I never thought I would actually be one of those casualties. It's something I still struggle with to this day, because my mindset should have always been to fight through it. Within seconds, once I figured out I was alive and the dust settled, which again seemed like an eternity, but it was literally seconds, I tried to roll to my side because a blast had pushed me back. Once everything settled, I'm trying to push myself up, and then I'm looking at the ground at that point, and my helmet had been blown off, and I'm looking at the ground, and then I look over and I see Staff Sergeant Connolly holding his hands to his face, and I see blood coming out. And as I tried to push myself up, teeth started to fall out of my mouth, and my tongue wasn't fully attached at that point, and part of my lip was severely injured. And I'm trying to push myself up and move my leg, and that's when I looked over and I noticed the blast injury to my leg, and it was mangled. I'm looking at Mike at that point, and then everybody, Marines that weren't injured, came over and got us off the roof as quickly as possible, because at that time there was still rounds coming in. Once I was stabilized, they were able to get myself, Staff Sergeant Conley, and Lance Corporal Joe Correa, who was also injured. We were all medevac to the Baghdad hospital. And as they're cutting off my clothes, my blood pressure starts to drop. So they're trying to get me stabilized enough for surgery. And they're talking about my multiple injuries, including my leg, that it may have to be amputated. And then all of a sudden I'm out. Next thing I know, I wake up, and I wake up to a pastor or a priest standing next to my bed, rubbing my chest. And I look over and I see Sergeant Horton. And Sergeant Horton, several days earlier, was blown off a roof, and I believe it was an RPG. At that time, my squad was tasked as a quick reaction force. So we get notification of the incident and that he's going to have to be medevac. So we travel out to the location, and I'm not laying directly on top of him. I'm on my elbows and he's underneath me, because I'm trying to prevent all the sand and debris to get into his wounds, because he had significant injuries, to say the least, and a helicopter had to land to get him off the X. And I'm talking to him, and we're somewhat joking back and forth. And he said, "You never know, you could wake up next to me." And as a priest is rubbing my chest and seeing if I'm okay after the surgery, I look over, and who do I see but Sergeant Horton? And he's in some sort of sedated state, medically induced coma. And you talk about a warrior. He spent probably several years recovering from his wounds, and he's still going strong today despite his injuries. He travels all over the world, seeing different parts of the world, and he has an incredible story himself. My wife had been notified of the extent of my injuries, but there wasn't a whole lot of information with that. They just said, your husband, Sergeant Shogren, was severely injured in Iraq, and with not a whole lot of information, because everything was so active in 2004. There was a lot of casualties. Iraq was just an extremely busy place at that time. So my wife figured out a way, and to this day, I'll never figure out how to call Baghdad's hospital where she knew I was. When I deployed, obviously married to my wife, Kimberly, and my daughter, Leah, at the time was about 8 months old. And prior to leaving, I wrote on her mattress, just know when you lay your head down at night, your daddy is here with you and loves you. And those mattresses that fit in a crib are plastic. And so I was able to write that on and it was covered up by a sheet. My daughter, since day one, could always sleep through the night. It was amazing. But that night she woke up just blood curdling, screaming, and pulled off the sheet on the mattress, was clutching the mattress, according to my wife, and wouldn't let go. And nothing my wife did could calm her down. Shortly after that, my wife got the phone call that I was injured. My wife calls, and I'm not really able to talk because of the injury to my mouth, and I'm really only able to mumble, but all she needed to hear was my voice. So the pastor put her phone up to my ear, and I wasn't doing real swift at the time. I was in and out, but I was able to mumble something, and that's all she needed. They were able to stabilize me enough, and a priest or a pastor was able to tell me that they were able to save my leg for now. They weren't real sure if I was going to be able to keep it at that time. So they stabilized me. They medevaced me to Landstuhl, Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base, where I had other surgeries. Once I was stable enough there, I eventually made my way to Balboa Hospital. I remember being in the hospital and talking to the doctor that was head of orthopedics and was doing all the surgeries on my leg, because at the end of the day, I had 8 surgeries to my leg and 4 surgeries to my face. And I had originally asked, when could I get back to my unit? I'll never forget his words. He told me, game over. You will be recovering long after your unit gets back. And we had started talking, and he asked what I did for a living in my civilian capacity. And I told him I was in law enforcement, and if I was going to be able to get back to law enforcement. He told me no, because of the extent of my injuries to my leg, and there was a strong likelihood that I wouldn't be able to. And I asked him, I said, is that your opinion? And he said, yes, Ryan, that's my medical opinion. So I did everything in my capacity to prove him wrong, and it was a very long recovery. However, I was able to return to my job at that time at the City of Brookfield Police Department roughly a year after my injury occurred, and saw that as such a blessing, because I was really able to continue to serve Staff Sergeant Conley and Lance Corporal Correa. They were able to eventually return to the unit and continue to serve alongside the unit we had served with so long. And that's one of the things I really struggled with, even to this day, because when you get injured, this was just my thought at the time. I know there was nothing I could have done different, but I felt like I was really letting my unit down. We had 5 casualties. We had Lance Corporal Wicklotch, who was actually part of my squad. We had Lance Corporal Warner, PFC Vroman, Corporal Prenning. His wife was pregnant with their first child, and he had another son, all killed while serving as part of that deployment. And that's something I really struggled with and still struggle with to this day, because I felt like I let them down, but I didn't want to squander this gift that I was giving for whatever reason. By all accounts, I shouldn't be alive. The mortar round landed feet from me, but I truly believe that God gave me a gift by saving me, and I feel incredibly blessed for that. I wanted to live for those men that weren't able to come home, and it was important for me to not let my injuries define me. I didn't want to squander this gift that had been given to me. So I did everything I could to not only support those around me, but then to serve in a way throughout my law enforcement career that they would be proud of the way I've served, and that they would know that they didn't make those sacrifices for no reason. And even to this day, I don't regret my deployment. I don't regret my injuries. In fact, I feel incredibly blessed and honored to have been able to serve alongside a company of warriors, men and women that were willing to sacrifice everything to protect others and to protect this great country we live in. And I learned more from them than they ever learned from me. I'm so incredibly indebted to those men and women throughout our armed forces that sacrificed everything so I could be here today. And those men and women in law enforcement, Officer Rittner that was killed in the line of duty with Milwaukee Police Department, he's a Marine that I deployed with. Those are the men and women that I'm trying to live my life for, and to live my life for Christ, and to make sure I'm a good father and husband to my incredible wife and kids that also sacrifice. And I think sometimes we forget that if we serve in the military and we serve in law enforcement, we just don't sacrifice, but our families at our home sacrifice so we can serve in that capacity. A friend of mine has hereditary kidney disease, and he's a law enforcement executive that's extremely well respected throughout the state, but has been incredibly influential in my career. And he, along with a couple others, have really mentored me over the years and is really the reason that I took promotions and grew in leadership, and has been an incredible friend throughout the years. He had hereditary kidney disease and had gotten to the point where he was looking to go on dialysis. I knew he would not ask anybody for a kidney. He was just going to go on to the donation list. And when it became widely known that he was going to need a new kidney, I actually called a mutual friend of ours to find out how to go through the process of getting tested to see if I'd be a viable candidate to donate a kidney. It took several days and several phone calls, but I eventually found out who to call at UW Medical Hospital that handles many kidney and liver transplants and other transplants. In April of 2023, I started to go through the kidney donation process and selection. For me, it was never a question, do I want to donate? It was a question if I could donate. I started the process in April, and there's multiple tests. In November of 2023, I found out that I wasn't only able to donate, I was a genetic match where I could donate directly to him. On December 13th, it was a funny phone call when transplant coordinator called me and said, hey, you're going to be able to donate directly to your friend. And I immediately asked him, I said, when can we get this scheduled? And he told me we're a couple of months out. I was able to call him and actually give him the news. And obviously, he was incredibly grateful. Then the scheduler calls me and they said, what's your schedule look at? And I just told him, I said, I tell you what, why don't you just tell me when the first opening is? And he said, December 13th at 8:30 in the morning. I said, that will be perfect. And she goes, do you want to check with the recipient? I said, trust me, he's going to be good with that date. December 13th, I was able to donate my kidney to him. And he's been such a blessing in my life. For me, it was an opportunity to serve him and be able to donate this gift to him, because I knew he wasn't going to only take care of it, he was going to thrive. It gives him an opportunity to be with his family. He has 4 wonderful daughters. He has a beautiful wife, and it gives him an opportunity to continue to be with his family and grow with them. It was an incredible experience. If I could donate another one, I would, because it's just been a blessing. When it comes to obstacles, I don't want to shy away from an obstacle. I want to find a way to overcome it, because life is full of these incredible obstacles, whether they're traumas or me getting injured, it would have been very easy for me to go into a dark hole and not come out of it. But I really try to live better for those that gave everything, that aren't lucky enough to spend time with their families and their children, and all these things that I'm able to do, it's because of them. Now, when I look at obstacles, I do everything I can, especially if somebody says you can't do something. I always try and prove them wrong. Like, I never thought I'd be able to donate a kidney because of my injuries. That's what I believed for a long time. If I wouldn't have taken that chance, if I wouldn't have gone to the kidney donation clinic and met with them and gone through this whole process, my friend would potentially still be on dialysis and facing a very different outcome than he has right now. I always just try to overcome any obstacles that comes my way and try to address them, and always try to live better for those that aren't with us.
I hope you learned from listening to Ryan's story and that you find him as inspirational as I have throughout my relationship with him. If you have any curiosity about who Ryan donated his kidney to, I am in fact the person that Ryan donated a kidney to and saved my life. Ryan's gift to me changed not only my own life, but also the life of my family. My family and I are both very grateful to Ryan.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the First On Scene podcast from the Law Enforcement Death Response Team. If you did, please subscribe. Also, check out the listings of law enforcement job openings on golawenforcement.com. Thanks for listening.